Welcome, everyone. This is That Japanese Thing, Episode 5. Today, we're going to be talking about the Overlord anime and the upcoming fourth season of it as well. We'll be talking about news, what we've been watching, and that's about it. With me today is Yesh and Dylan. Welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Hey,
Hello,
hey.
hello.
Cool. Yeah, let's get going, guys. We've got some interesting news from Japanese anime as usual. In that, we always like to talk about how trash anime is.
Mhm.
We actually have an anime about trash coming out, specifically about. It's called Spogami, which is apparently a real sport in Japan, with picking up trash as a competitive sport. I've never really come across that uh, in any Japanese media before, but apparently it is a thing, and Japan is known for being very neat and tidy.
And cleaning up
And,
stadiums and stuff that they attend en masse.
and when I lived in Japan, I remember people complaining about neighborhood associations that would come by your apartment and just sort of pester you into going to the river and picking up trash and that sort of thing. I remember some of my professors really complaining about these old Japanese ladies who made you do this basically as part of your civic duty. But it seems like it's kind of also a sport, and I don't really know what to think about that. Do you think
It's an
do you think it's
interesting
something
concept.
people will get into outside of Japan?
They already have.
Really?
It's become so. I'm an avid Reddit user, and on Reddit, I have seen that there are karma competitions, which are competitions for upvotes of people cleaning up public areas. So they show before pictures of a polluted area, usually a river or some kind of water feature, and then after, with all of the bags that they've collected in the foreground and in the background, the cleaned up place. And it's become more and more regular in the last 2 years.
I mean, that's great though. I mean, it's just like a super positive kind of sport. Then there's very little bad you could say about uh, that, I guess, except for some of these people probably being quite annoying. So
Um,
yeah.
yes, it is super positive because we're starting to see public areas getting cleaned up for the first time in a while. I mean, the fact that these places are so horrifically trashed is kind of sad in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's by the Japanese foundation, the Nippon Foundation. I think they're sponsoring this anime, and it looks very well. I mean, what kind of anime do you think this is, guys? Just
Slice of life.
without if you could just imagine the character cast, what would it be in your heads before even
Mm,
saying anything about it?
I mean, traditionally, I would say it would be a cute girls doing cute things kind of anime.
That is pretty much exactly what it's going to be. We have we have we have your three typical girl personalities. It seems you got your Genki type, your studious type, and then your idiot, right?
Your pawn, yeah.
Yeah, and surprisingly there's also a guy involved. So I guess they don't want to completely exclude men from doing this activity. Although you know historically putting a lot of girls in a thing has never really deterred men from seeking out that activity.
mm.
But a bunch of cute girls doing cute things have included like three girls, one guy. That's a pretty standard formula as well.
Yeah, I suppose that is true.
High
It's
school clubs tend towards being like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's coming out this year. It seems anyway, 1st of April. It's called Spogami, right? Which is
Origami.
just sport garbage, right? Sport trash. Yeah, I mean,
God, I can't wait for the tournament arc.
I actually I'm surprisingly excited about this. It's gonna be a great it's like anime candy, you know. There's gonna be no substance to this whatsoever. It's just gonna be fun to watch, I imagine. and you're gonna feel like you've been taught a moral at the end of each episode.
Mm.
What do you think, Dylan? You're not so sold.
I'm not so convinced on that being a draw for me. I'd have to see. If it were like in my mind, it would be kind of like the style of yakitate Japan almost, right? Like,
Well,
you
the
know,
animation
like
kind of does look like that, if
Ah.
I'm honest.
ah.
But
So you're
and
looking
I don't think
for
it will be like a competitive. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it
a
will be.
more
It's a sports
shonen
anime, so
type.
it will be competitive,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's what I was
But-
going to say. There'll be some competitiveness, otherwise it wouldn't be a SPO.
Well, not just the competitiveness, but like taking something that's seemingly mundane on the surface and then showing depth to it, right? Which is kind of the formula of those early anime on that style.
Mm.
So I don't know. Obviously, I'm not too sure what kind of format this anime will take. If it's the afternoon special kind of vibe, I don't think I would be keen to really go into it. But if it is like either character exploration or just sort of someone's interesting take on something seemingly mundane, then I might be into it. Yeah.
So one of the main voice actresses is Naomi Ozara, and she was Uzaki from
Zaki-chan.
Yeah, Uzaki-chan.
Oh, cool.
Is Wants to Play or something. I can't remember the name. So I mean, it's actually got like a surprisingly good cast for something that's after school special sort of production, I guess. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. What do you?
I will
yeah.
say that there's been a very big expansion of anime with repetitive action, slice of life, very little happening with any stakes kind of anime. And their purpose is to just be like cute girls, beautiful backgrounds, some repetitive music. And you just chill with them in the background. You almost don't pay attention to the anime in a way. And you just get
also like
warm vibes.
But also like a normal, like a normalcy type of vibe, right? We've got
Like the world is carrying on.
much noise going on that's stressful all the time. Sometimes it's nice to just have something that is like as normal as a slice of life for an extramural, in this line.
Hey guys, remember the 90s when the world wasn't on fire and about to end?
Or at least we didn't know about it. Good times.
Yeah, I mean, but it is nice to watch something like that, especially like Eurocamp or like that anime that's just about fishing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love having those things on as just an unwind at the end of a stressful day. So I'm hoping this will be something like that.
Cool.
I mean, it could be like Haikyuu, but with trash. But probably not going in that direction.
I kind of doubt it's going in that direction, based on what I've seen.
Did you watch my senpai is loud and annoying? I don't know what it's called in English.
Yeah, I think it's like My Annoying Tiny Senpai or something like that.
No, I've never seen it.
But so it's about like the really giant guy and like his little coworker. And there's a scene in that where like they get suckered into doing this sort of cleanup process that goes on, and it's him and like the coworker's like grandfather, who's like this really like biker kind of outdoorsy kind of person, and they get into this super match of just cleaning up all the trash along the entire river. So I'm not sure if it's going to be intense like that, or if it's just going to be more like funny, walking along rivers, walking around streets and things.
Yeah.
Okay, Yash, what do you got for us?
Unfortunately, my topic is quite a bit heavier. So the Tokyo High Court recently made a decree that brought some light to something I didn't know Japan was doing, and yet sounds like the most Japanese thing ever. So it turns out Japan had a eugenic protection law, or the EPL, from 1948 until 1996.
Yes.
In which people would be sterilized if they or their partner or their partner's family could be shown to have psychopathia, malformation, body disease, mental health, or apparently, leprosy. There we go. And this could go up to 3 generations away or 3 degrees away. So your cousin's cousin kind of thing. You could apply to be sterilized. And also, if you wished for any treatment from the NHK that required you to be admitted, mostly in mental health, but also for long-term care, you had to be willing to accept sterilization if any of these conditions could affect you, or up to 3 sorry, they're not saying the words here, for like 3 relationships away in your family. So,
I'm glad, like, at least that is the wording of the law, and it wasn't like, leprosy and or being Korean, At least
so
that's progress for Japan.
that's kind of progress for Japan, but they had malformation apparently applied to racial features
Yeah,
and
that
bodily
sounds
disease and
more
stuff.
like what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So
like-
it was called the EPL. Sorry, yes, Dylan?
No. Carry on, yeah.
It was called the EPL, and I didn't realize that it was still valid until 1996.
Nor did I. Sure.
And 16,500 men and women were sterilized due to this. Many of whom, it turns out, were not informed about what the operation was. And many of them were not consulted, as the parents or guardians were asked about it without informing the patient if they wanted to be handed in for long-term care.
I mean, one of the cases that I read about was for a 14-year-old boy that was sterilized, right? In
Right.
the 50s, in the late 50s. It's like dystopian for me, coming from a biomedical background. It's we have medical ethics for a reason, and this should have been a bigger deal than what it was.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
to be clear, if you have a genetic disease, there's nothing wrong with being sterilized, so you don't want to pass it on. But it should definitely be something that you consent
choose.
to when you are able to do so.
So
Yeah.
the reason why this came back into the light is because the Tokyo High Court recently had to make a ruling as the government applied for what is it? The statute of limitations to apply, because Shunsuke, the person from your story, Dylan, Shunsuke Abe, wanted to receive reparations for being sterilized in the 50s. And they're trying to say that the statute of limitations allows them to get out of that. And the High Court said that that is not in service of justice because he was sterilized against his will and without consent. And it's not serving justice if they were allowed to do that without recompense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I
didn't even
it's something
expect.
that has happened over the years in Japan as well. Just there used to be 3 major racial groups in Japan, and they are not anymore. So stuff did happen.
Some stuff was definitely happening, but a lot of sterilizations were done under the malformations, which is apparently, according to this, sometimes you could be said that your eye shape was just wrong. They didn't have to be medically disabling.
So that 1948, that's originally when the conservative government would have come into power in Japan.
So apparently, eugenics was brought to Japan from Americans.
That's what I was going to say, which was part of a CIA plot, because the Japanese were very keen on voting for the Communist Party, which is still a party in Japan actually, and the Americans were very uncomfortable with that. So the conservatives were very much encouraged by the CIA to get into power and maintain power no matter what.
Another thing that the government's taking flack for is that it's been revealed that part of this law was implemented specifically because they were worried about overpopulation. So aggressive sterilization was their response to fears of overpopulation.
Times they have changed.
I mean, 1996. That's not that long ago.
No, it's not.
And it's strange, right? I mean, obviously, Actually, I mean, Japanese population has been declining for like 2 decades now,
Mm.
but it's now reached like a point where it's a real problem, even for business. For
Yes, they don't
example,
have replacement.
and Intel was considering moving a lot of its, sorry, no, TSMC, a big silicon chip
Manufacturer.
manufacturer, was considering moving its factories to Japan to be more safe because they're currently in Taiwan.
Mm.
And after after Ukraine, I think people are already considering the future of Taiwan.
Mm.
But it's so hard to get employees in Japan because there just aren't enough people to fill those positions that they're reconsidering moving, even though they're already mostly have done it at this point. And
But they don't have the workforce.
yeah, I mean, at this point, Japan needs to import something like 300,000 to 400,000 people a year just to maintain its population.
And the Japanese will not allow people to come in to live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, the way we think about controlling population and things through these sort of artificial means. I mean, obviously, I mean there can be some benefits to it, but it seems like nature will kind of compensate by itself once
Mm.
it
Yeah.
reaches some sort of equilibrium.
Yeah. It
It,
does
it,
seem
it,
to be the
it
trend. The
yeah, it
trend. Yeah.
doesn't seem like the world is just going to continue to have billions and billions more people added to it. There is
Yeah.
like a hard limit on that, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is probably
Anyways,
counterproductive to
to
nature.
that, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
sorry for the heavier topic, but I just wanted to bring some light onto something that I didn't realize was a thing, and the
yeah.
fact that it is being rectified by Japanese courts at this point in time.
Yeah.
Well,
Thankfully, I mean,
hopefully Dylan has a more upbeat news story for us.
hopefully, I don't know. I don't. It depends on how superstitious you are, I guess. For those
Well,
who
obviously, not superstitious, but ghosts are real, right?
They have
probably,
to
yeah,
be.
Have to be, right?
especially certain types of ghosts.
Sure.
So for folks who are into their yokai folk stories, they should know what Seki is, which is it's this rather large rock that was said to have contained 1,000-year-old malevolent fox spirit in it. Right, the whole nine tails
The QB.
type of thing. Um, and this has split recently in the last
Oh no,
week or so,
Naruto's
uh,
out.
like right down the middle. Normally, like, so what this rock would look like is essentially a rock that's bound with one of those prayer
Those
ropes,
Yeah.
and that's all been sheared in two.
Is this
So
is this the one? Where is it
it's
located?
in Mount Nasu. Mount
Mount
Nasu.
Nasu.
Yeah, it's in. Let me just get a prefecture for you.
It's not the one by Nagasaki, by any chance, is it?
I don't think so. It's in Tochigi Prefecture.
Okay, so a
Mm,
bit more north. But yeah, like you'll actually see a bunch of those sort of god stones
mm,
anywhere in Japan you go to where there's a little temple. Usually they're at the top of the mountain because that's where gods are assumed to live in Japanese folklore.
yeah. Just it brings to mind like images from Ranma Half, right? When Hapusai gets released, he's stuck in this cave, and there's this massive boulder with one of those ropes wrapped around it.
I mean,
And
when did it happen?
when did this happen?
Yeah.
This happened, I think, either earlier this week or last.
It was earlier this week, I believe.
I think it was
because
discovered. It was discovered by someone who posted a picture of it on Twitter. So I'm not sure if we've got the exact day. Right, I don't know if it had enough traffic at the time for us to pinpoint the day specifically.
Okay.
Mm.
I wonder what the theological implications of that is. Is the god now dead, or is it escaped? Is that the
I suspect, seeing as though it's a spirit and that the bind has broken, it would normally mean that the spirit's probably been released, or that there's been a great a great
Yeah.
ill that the
And
world's
so,
gonna
I
face.
mean,
But
the QB, the Ninetales, is a kitsune, right?
yeah, this one in particular is known as Tamamo no Mai,
Okay.
if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's there's a lot of history to this bird, from parading itself around as ancient Chinese courtesans to well, as you know, kitsune have been known to shapeshift,
All
right?
right.
So, and then
It is that
perform their
one, yeah.
mischief in different guises. So
So,
yeah.
if anyone's watched, I don't know the English titles of things, but the cool headedness of Hozuki, it's about this demon from hell who devil, I suppose, technically an Oni, right? He's
Mm,
the assistant to King Enma. Enma is like King Yama from Dragon Ball
mm,
Z,
Mm.
and the one of like the head's kind of bureaucrats is that fox spirit from that thing.
yeah.
So, I mean, that sort of places that the idea of that person at. She's in charge of um, one of the hells. There's like a lot of hells in Japanese mythology, but she's
Mm,
in charge of one of them that punishes men who are promiscuous or lustful.
yeah. A lot of folklore, especially when it comes to the femme fatale archetypes, tends to be along the lines of this entity drawing what would be chaste and honest men down the path of impropriety, and them losing all of their wealth, or escaping by by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, do you know the Yashki Waraski? That seems wrong. The like the little the doll twins.
No, I
From
don't.
those like little painted dolls. They're supposed to be like that. They sort of come to life
Hmm.
and they invade like a not invade, but they set up a home in a merchant shop, and they make that merchant very successful.
Hmm.
But they do it in such a way that that merchant will eventually destroy themselves and their family
Yeah,
by getting too much power, by incurring the wrath of authorities, or losing all their money in tax fraud or something like that. So there's like
it's that
a lot of
parable
that sort of idea in Japanese
parable
mythology,
element. Yeah,
which is why barriers and salt lines and things are very important to rituals and keeping
Mm.
out
yeah,
the miasma of evil
yep,
spirits.
exactly that.
Dylan,
Hmm.
in general chat, I've posted an image of this colorized,
Yeah,
actually.
I've seen it.
Excellent.
For our listeners, it's a picture of Rita from Power
Repulsa.
Rangers. Yeah, after 1,000
Um,
years, finally free. It says.
finally free.
Along with cackling laughter.
As a
I
note,
mean, obviously, I don't think any of this is real, so
No,
nothing will
no.
come of this. But it is a cool story.
it is a cool story.
And I think
Exactly.
with that, moving on to our main topic, which
Sorry, I
is
just wanted to do a headline that I just read. I don't want to do the story, I just want to read the headline.
Hmm.
High schools will no longer police girls' underwear color.
yay.
Hmm. See,
So-
They're
yes, you got to
abolishing
start
the
by
rule.
saying this just in.
It is just in it. The article released 4 hours ago. They're implementing it on Monday. That's teachers will no longer be allowed to examine a girl's underwear to determine if it's the right color.
Doesn't that just
Yay.
sound like the worst task? Like during your school, like discipline, like session or whatever.
Um,
yeah.
No beanies, no da da da. Oh god, now I have to check everyone's underwear color. So
I'm
that
sure they
sounds
didn't
like
do
the
it
most
all the time.
uncomfortable thing to do.
Yes, exactly.
these are concepts that I don't really understand, so I tend to stay away from commenting about, because
I mean,
I've got
it's sort
no
of more interesting
contextual.
with like hair and such in Japan because most people have the same hair,
Yeah.
so that's policed quite heavily.
Mm.
Yeah.
Even if you're like white or black or something in Japan, people want you to have that straight black hair in school. So people are asked to dye their hair black or to have it straightened sometimes
Mm.
just to fit in.
So the dyeing of the hair thing is also being pushed back on. It hasn't passed yet, but it's been pushed back on.
Yeah.
So all students' hair doesn't have to be black anymore is something that they might consider.
No, it is crazy because even some Japanese people have like brown hair. So
So I used to think it was crazy and like a terrible anime trope. But like in some of the manga I've been reading and anime I've watched very long ago, please note, not modern anime. The trope was that as you entered in the gate, a teacher would check your bag and apparently check girls' underwear. And I always thought that that was just like a joke or like a terrible concept or whatever. But apparently it's real. They check your underwear at the gate in public, out in the open. Like obviously they don't
that I
ask you to
believe.
lift your skirt, but
That's just the embarrassment factor added to it, so you don't do it again, right?
well, also they don't check everyone. Obviously, they only check people they think they are a problem. But
Yeah.
like teachers shouldn't be bullying students anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
I didn't even
That
know
was
that was
too
a
big
thing.
of a
To be
piece of
frank,
news for me to just
I-
allow to pass.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I'll be honest. No.
I assumed it wasn't real. I'd seen it in a bunch of manga before, but now reading that they're abolishing that rule and checking for underwear is a rule that they're abolishing. Wow.
Hey, that's progress.
Part of
Progress.
having that homogenous kind of law-abiding society is having those draconian laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, technically, if it works, I shouldn't diss it. But damn.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have context on it to even comment on it.
Comment too
It's one of
much,
those
yeah.
things. So about that Overlord,
So I think let's move on to our next topic, which is Overlord, the anime, and not the movie, which admittedly is also kind of good.
you talking about the live action movie, right? Or the
live action movie.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, anyway, so Overlord is, I think, one of my best of the big four isekai animes. I'd maybe put it in second place.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I said like last week. I think week before we did rank.
I mean, I feel like we're going to keep re-ranking stuff as we go through this exploration, right? I feel like that's quite fun.
It's not like it's definitely not like as well made as Yojo Senki or as funny as ReZero.
You mean, I'm hoping you don't mean ReZero.
Or as
Konosuba.
Konosuba, as funny as
blackmailing as
Konosuba.
ReZero or as funny as Konosuba. That's what I mean. But it's got this weird tone, which is really conducive to power fantasies.
And it's not boring while doing a power fantasy.
And I think it does it in there's a whole bunch of really memorable moments. I think particularly from season 2 in Overlord that I really like going back to every now and then and just watching again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Dylan, how would you describe Overlord as someone who's just watched it?
In terms of isekai, sure. Look, I apart from a technical description, in other words, like what happens, this storyline wise, how I describe it is
what is it about?
So how I would describe it is that it's like your microcosm versus macrocosm view or perspective. You've got your main character who's just so insanely overpowered that nothing that's native to the world that he's in could ever hope to even comprehend the level that he's at. Right? So you've got this overarching story of this essentially godlike or god level character, right? Supreme being.
Yeah.
And then you've got the microcosm. So you're looking at these small mini stories of these individuals' lives, and like you see sort of the things that really matter to them, and then you get it juxtaposed with that macrocosm, and you realize that it's just completely insignificant, right? So there are all these like political plays and trying to really, clean up slavery and
Yeah,
fight ogre uprisings and the rest of it, and all of this is just it's kibble in front of the supreme being, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what makes it fun, which is strange because a lot of animes that do that are just very bad.
Yes.
Like Smartphone or.
Oh my God, Smartphone.
It was like I'm level 1,000 in level 1 world or something like that, right?
Also, far more
Yeah.
importantly, in all of those stories, it never feels like the owner of the power deserves it in any way, shape, or form. Or like they don't know how to use their power in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I will
Because
give
usually-
you that point because, this guy has like grinded for his levels, right? That he's spent the time to get to where he is.
It's important just to let's describe the show quickly.
Sorry, yes.
It's
I must
Isekai
stay
show,
silent.
which means the protagonist has been taken from Japan and put into another world. We don't actually know if it's Japan this time, although he looks Japanese. The guy.
He said he worked for a Japanese company at the minimum.
Yeah, I
in the
mean, well, he said he
beginning.
was a salary man, right? So
Mm.
that's
And
close
his
enough.
name is Japanese, the name of the real human version of himself.
I've never heard it. Have you?
I have, but I can't tell you what it is off the top of my
Right.
head. Sorry.
Anyway, from the movie, he looks Japanese, but it's in the far future, right? And he sort of has this insanely advanced kind of VR machine that he gets into, and it gets immersed in this game that he's been playing for 10 years. And it's at the end of its life cycle, and it's about to end. So him and his friends built up this guild in I suppose like a Warcraft kind of world, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a fantasy setting world.
Called
a DMMO.
Yeah, Idrisil, the World Tree, which was
Yeah.
apparently a very open kind of place where it did have level 1 to 100 kind of things.
Oh gosh, I finally understand why I didn't remember his name. It's the most generic thing I could have thought of. Sorry, his real life name is Suzuki Satoru.
Ah.
Right. Sorry, I'm apparently in a war zone. It's just something that's happening right now. Got dogs barking and just endless helicopters flying overhead.
Mm.
What is going on?
It's interesting. I'm not picking up the helicopters. I'm picking up the dog, not the.
Because
dog
I
is
live close
next
to where
door.
Chris lives, I heard the helicopters in real life, but I didn't hear them over his microphone, correct?
Ah.
Anyway, jumping back in. But yeah, so it's a normal progression in a kind of MMO, level 1 to 100. You can choose modular classes, which is the cool thing, I think.
Actually,
all of the
classes level
characters-
up. So
Yeah.
once you maximize a class, you can get another class past it.
Yes, and you can mix and match them, so you can really individualize the characters, which I think is the fun part of what the supreme beings, which are the guild members, right? But the NPCs, think of them as like gods, because they created the NPCs. And they some of the NPCs are as powerful as the characters, and some of them are created as a joke. Like one of the characters, the vice butler, is just no the vice butler.
Oh, vice butler.
Sebas's assistant is a penguin.
Yes.
And his character is dedicated to taking over the tomb of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, which is the guild.
Yeah.
But he's just a penguin, really.
Yeah.
So the guild they belonged to was all non-human.
Yes.
Characters. Although I'm not entirely sure what Sebas is. Like he might be a human of some sort.
And Touch Me is also kind of a question mark.
Yeah. But yeah, they were kind of an evil organization, I suppose, to some degree. They were opposed by the human factions and
Yeah. I
Think
think
of it
it's
as
like
like
the
the Alliance versus the Horde kind
yeah.
of situation, right?
I was just about to say, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so the server is about to go down at midnight, and he stays on just to keep his creation company until it dies, essentially. Last few things he does before the server goes down is he alters some of the parameters of the NPCs
Mm.
in their code just for fun, because that's the last thing he's going to do. And one of them is to make Alberto love him, which is a strange one.
Because in her code,
Yeah.
she was a giant tease who never let anyone finish.
Yes, and he actually deleted that and replaced it with Alberto
She's
loves.
in love with him.
Yeah, so she's not that anymore, which is what we learn in season 3, right?
Correct.
She's the virgin succubus. Is the joke, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that is an accurate statement.
But what did you think of it, Dylan? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
I didn't really like it. It didn't connect for me all that well. I just felt that the concepts were too disparate. They were, they didn't, for me, they didn't tie in that microcosm, macrocosm element to it together well enough. And I'm not trying to, it's very much so, obviously I hesitate to say this because, I'm not as well watched up or read up on this genre. But if I haven't seen anything like this, so it may well just be that this is too new a concept or format rather for me.
Mm.
But that exploration of power dynamics and how being overpowered, like for example, One Punch Man does a really good job of showing how you don't have a very interesting story if your character is a shoo-in, right? If they're going to win every confrontation, there's nothing really to be gained from that story, and you've got to look elsewhere to find interest in those storylines. I feel like it's a similar factor here, to the point where Ainz actually almost hamstrings himself in certain circumstances, to test sort of the environment, the NPCs, and the native elements of the world, right? Because it is a different world that he finds himself in than the actual Yggdrasil. So there is an unknown quality, and he starts off very cautiously, and I can appreciate that. But eventually, it's evident that there are very few groups or entities that could come up against even his underlings, let alone him.
I suspect there is going to be a sudden fall from grace and that sort of attitude at some point in the show.
See, that would be interesting
confronted
for
with
me.
A player character from another time.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
So I do feel like it's hinted that the Holy Kingdom, which we haven't had too much interaction with, but we've seen bits, are going to be a big threat. Because there's the dragon. There's also that lady that used that mind control power on the vampire, Shaltier.
Although I think there's an item she had, right?
It was an item. But here's the thing. The lady herself wasn't strong enough to stand up against Shaltier. That's a progressing theme. Right? But the fact that she had an item that could take control of an undead, and not only an undead, one of the highest powered undead in Nazrek, and that's just an old lady roaming about the countryside from the Holy Kingdom, is supposed to give us this idea that there is a threat to Ainz.
I mean,
there are other world items
from season 1 that we see in that little dragon segment that suggest that there was another group that came through like 400 years ago or something.
Yeah, there were inferences to that. Yeah.
So I expect that's gonna come into play, especially now that Ainz has revealed himself as the Sorcerer King.
Sorcerer King.
Yeah.
So now that the two of you have talked about your impressions, can I ruin this podcast by speaking unstoppingly for the next 2 hours?
Could we stop you?
I don't know, but I'm holding off until I'm allowed to speak.
Speak.
Cool. So firstly, Sebas. Sebas is a dragonoid, which is why his power level is so high. He's part dragon, part man. Also, his name is Sebas, first name, Tien. Sebastian. Because the perfect butler is the most British motherfucker on the planet.
Well, that's a Japanese trope, actually.
It's a Japanese trope.
Like Alfred is the name in English for a butler. It's Sebastian in Japanese.
Sebastian it has to be that name, or it's not a proper butler.
Correct.
So they named him Sebastian. Perfect. Utterly great.
Because Guild was built by, like 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, right?
Exactly.
So that's their idea.
And girls. We do know that there were some girls.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Because Momonga's watch has the voice of one of the girls. Anyways, let's get back to the beginning of all of this. Sorry. Overlord is not a master of any one thing that it does, but it is fantastic at all of the little things it does. So we've all watched anime where an adventurer goes into an adventurer's hole and has to build up his rank from E rank at the bottom, but he's secretly super powerful. In this anime, they do that entire adventure, and that's a side arc. We've all seen the anime where the great Overlord appears, and he has to take over a kingdom and start ruling and build up his power base. This anime does that. And then it throws in political intrigue over and above this building up thing. We're not only building up a village, we're also running a kingdom, which is much bigger than a village, but for some reason we're still running a village, and we're running a kingdom, and we're dealing with political intrigue, and we're an adventurer, and we're a war anime. All of these all at once, juggling all of them, and doing all of them well.
I don't think I like any of that about Overlord.
I
think the only things I like about Overlord is like the side story characters and the weird interactions with the NPCs.
So I'm not done yet. We're also a corporate anime because he tries to run Nazarick as a corporation. He worries about their holidays.
Sure.
The individual people.
He's just a businessman, so he worries about sick days and things like that.
Sick days and stuff. The individual managers he has managing different sectors are doing things that are totally not what he wants, but he doesn't realize that. When we discover how horrifying the sheep farm is.
I was going to say, I love how stupid he is. He doesn't understand sarcasm, right?
He doesn't understand sarcasm because he thinks the NPCs are reporting to him wholeheartedly.
Yes,
but the NPCs are horrific monsters.
Like humanoid sheep, he just means humans. Right.
He just means he's making this throne out of human bones. He's feeding people.
Yeah.
Yes, and harvesting their skin for scrolls.
It's all very disturbing. But he's a bad manager, but also a great manager. And then over and above all of that, there's also the fact that he is an idiot that is working with 3 or 4 geniuses. Because the king of that kingdom to the north of him that tried to make adventurers invade the Nazarick, he's a genius in his own time. He took over his entire kingdom when he was 13 or something, and he's been cleaning up corruption and everything in his kingdom this whole time.
Yeah, he goes to that kingdom and he sort of describes it as basically being a modern society, right?
Because it's far more based on talent rather than bloodlines.
Yes.
But also Princess Renner is a genius in her own right, although psychopathic.
Yeah, yes. She's the Cinderella type, right?
No, she's the type.
Yandere.
Yandere. She's very yandere. It's super, super rough in its own right.
It is very creepy, yeah.
And then Albedo and Demiurge are also shown to be
as her god.
And then Albedo and Demiurge are both shown to be super geniuses in their own right. But because everyone is convinced he's a genius playing an idiot.
Yeah.
And because Albedo and Demiurge are actually geniuses and can prove their geniuses to the other geniuses, everyone is running off of their opinion, off of Ainz being he's a genius playing an idiot, not just that he's an idiot.
And he gets it right just often enough that he keeps that illusion sort of going.
And also his minions can just correct for his mistakes as if it was part of his plan the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So he always ends up looking good, while almost always having no idea why he's looking good. And all of this is played in a cast of about 80 people, and we know them, and we recognize them, and we know what their personalities are when we see them mostly.
That's very well handled. Everyone is very distinctive. You don't
Very
Yes.
get them
distinctive.
confused.
We know what their goal is, and we know what their history is. I don't think any other anime could do this to me, because I think a lot of anime struggle to get me to care about 4 people. Sometimes 4 is too much for most of the anime I'm watching nowadays.
Mm.
In this anime, I'm interested in about 80 people.
What's your
I don't
favorite,
care about them.
What's your favorite
So,
arc in the anime?
so my favorite arc is what's going to come up in season 4.
No, like that exists already.
That exists already in anime. Okay, my bad. So my favorite arc in what currently exists, I think, is very early to this. It's the arc in which Momonga, as his adventurer personality, goes into the graveyard to try and build up his rank.
Ah.
Because this is the first time we see him managerialize himself out of a problem. Because in a very real way, it feels like he's just completely incompetent sometimes. But when he discovers Neferia and that Neferia can use any magic item, but Neferia is also related to perhaps making magic potions the way it was in the MMO as opposed to the crap that they get in real life, he very carefully and very thoroughly handles that situation immediately. Unlike a lot of hero characters in a lot of anime, he doesn't just forgive Neferia and then's like, I beg you, work for me. Instead, he's like, you were involved with the massacre of a lot of people. You and your grandmother are going to go work for me for the rest of your life. I've given a whoop to someone in your circle, friend.
Surprisingly ruthless at times, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I think he describes it at one point as his brain has been transfigured into that of an undead. So he doesn't really think of
Because
people
his
as
emotions have been removed.
See,
Something like that.
this is the one thing that I would find interesting if they explored it a bit more within at least the first 2
anime, at
seasons,
least.
right? Which is every time he gets like
Strong
a strong emotion, but it like when we say strong, it's not like overpowering rage or uncontrollable lust. It's like any time that he's got like some sort of heartwarming feeling or maybe some form of attraction or embarrassment, you get that visible cue where it's like a sort of he like glows a little and then he just retains composure again. And like sure, I could think of this as being an analog to what would be expected of you in adult society. You would remain composed at all times.
Composed at all times, yeah.
But I actually want to know what are the mechanics in this world that are actually doing it. It's almost as if there's like some higher entity that's kind of keeping the shapes a certain way. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that there is some mechanism behind the curtains, right? And that doesn't get explored.
There is. And if you look into the light novels, it's kind of explained. If you're interested
That's
in that.
what I was going to say. I'm someone who has read the light novels, which is the view I was supposed to bring to this. And they go into Suzuki's perspective a heck of a lot more. And it's a lot sadder in the beginning, because all of the things that he used to enjoy about the game, he can't feel joy for any extended period of time from anymore. So like walking around the halls, remembering his friends and everything, is all slowly leaching out of him. Because he can still remember them mechanically, but the joy he felt at thinking about their achievements is being sucked away from him.
So he's almost gradually being turned into an NPC rather than a player.
Well, in a very real way. He's becoming his character.
Yeah.
So I think
even more to that,
of it in terms of like a D&D character or video game character, all those standard traits for an undead are now being forced on his own mind, right? So you can't be mind controlled because undead doesn't experience emotions, and that's the reasoning, I think, that's going on there.
Yeah,
although it doesn't seem to be absolute, right? There is like a slight disconnect there.
Yeah.
So
well, like
he's allowed to feel an emotion, and then it gets cut off.
Yeah.
Well, Sheltier is a vampire, which I always feel is like just undead other, right? Because they're like the dramatic undead.
Yeah, it's just that in the series they actually make mention of the fact that she shouldn't have been it shouldn't have been possible that she could be mind controlled. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that brought up for me that when she shows emotion, she's acting.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
I think so. Because when she
Yeah.
starts attacking for realsies, she transforms into a leech. I think that's
suppose,
when
yeah.
she's showing an actual emotion.
That's disturbing. But every character is disturbing in that. I mean, Albedo is, relentlessly like species. She hates humans. Wants
Mm.
to
Yeah.
murder them all. Demio just getting some alive for fun and profit. Sheltier literally eats people. I think this is the samurai bug. What's his name?
Oh, Cocytus.
Cocytus. Yeah.
Kokitis. Yeah, he's maybe honorable in some sense, and so is Sebas.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But everyone else is a nightmare character.
Like
Even
Intome,
the cute little, like,
Intome is
elf.
like real nightmare fuel.
And Toma, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's so cute as well. So you can really feel this otakusm shining through, where all of these people are cute or fit a anime
Yeah.
trope in some way, but they're made up of horrifying things.
Yeah.
um, I think for me though, the thing I like about it is when one of the NPCs starts to act like a real person.
Mm.
And I think that's the dichotomy, and that's the sort of the space between interest and uh, what things originally were, right? So
Mm,
Momonga is becoming more of this character. He's actually becoming the guild. He's becoming
Yeah.
the end boss character slowly.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But Sebas is becoming like a normal person, right? Falling in
Yeah.
love with
Because Lord Touch Me, the guy that made Sebas, was
was the
about
justice guy.
chivalry
Yeah.
and doing the right thing. Touch Me Sama was the person who saved Ainz back when Ainz was low level.
And
Yeah.
and so like we have this development of Sebas into like a very good character, right? He's not. It doesn't seem evil in any way. Um, maybe that'll develop further in the future, but he just seems honorable, law-abiding, caring.
Yeah,
And
law abiding and has that value set of trying to help those in need if they
yeah,
haven't transgressed, right?
not
Mm.
going out of his way, but
But
doing it
but he's
obviously.
still cold hearted for anything else. You know, if you've transgressed, he's got no issue lying to someone saying he won't seek killing anyone, and then he'll just murder his way
Everyone.
through the problem.
Sure. But what I really like about it is they're making all these low-level characters into real people. The thing I like the most in the series is the Lizard Village. I
Yeah, that
mean,
was my favorite arc as well.
where you don't think twice about murdering an entire hive of kobolds or lizard folk in a video game, do you?
No,
No one
yeah,
ever thinks about them. But suddenly we have like, oh, the 4 tribes that must unite to restore the honor of the 7, and we've got these weird backstories of each of the tribes, one with cannibalism and like a sad story, the warrior tribe, and like the uniter people, the lizard man who's trying to progress the lizard folk into a new era of farming, I suppose, right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, that's part of the plan. And
It's
also, he's using the lizardmen to train Hanusuke to see if he can train monsters with adventurer levels.
Yeah. I mean, that is really interesting. Making these weird little side character things. Hamsuke must be from Idrisil, right?
He is an Idrisil boss, lesser boss.
Low level, like 10th, 20th, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, all of these NPCs just becoming real. We're never sure how this happens, hey?
We're not sure what the exact reasoning is, but we do know that for the past 700 years at least, people from our world have been transferred over to this place, and they have created a god myth of their own. That they are like angels or saviors that come through with superpowers and do some good deeds.
I do wonder if it's all from Idrisil or if some of them are from different games. That would be the coolest thing.
That's an interesting concept I hadn't considered.
If
But
just some god is taking people that play these sort of games and putting them
put
into
them
a
over
fantasy
there.
world. Yeah, with
But I
their
will
knowledge.
say, I know that the Holy Empire was created by 4 of these transferees. So the Holy Empire did a bunch of work regarding the game's mechanics, Yggdrasil specific.
Yes, yeah.
And so they have access to God and world tier items, which we see at least one of when Shaltir gets taken control of. Sorry, I hadn't actually finished why the graveyard scene is my favorite scene.
Sure, go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I just wanted to say as well, just to wrap that up, not only do we get a great fight with the dragon and also this murderous lady that we seriously want to see die, but we also get that Irons has his own emotions, even if he can't show them too much. And he cared. He actually cared for the adventurers he was with. And getting revenge for them actually mattered for him. He makes a whole bunch of excuses out of his mouth. But when he's killing that girl and he's slowly hugging her, he says, "Did she scream like this too?" Just before he kills the mad murderer lady.
Sure, I mean, and you sympathize with that he's doing something that might be good, but he's doing it in a horrific way as well.
In a real horrific way. Although later on, it turns out that Tuare, the girl that Sebas saved, is the sister that that adventuring healer lady was looking for.
Oh, I didn't know that. Ha.
So in the scene afterwards, he pulls out the book that she had that he took from her corpse and said that she taught me about this world. I'm just paying it back. But in reality, Ainz has always been super soft for the people that he works with in a party. His sense of companionship is crazy strong.
You do get that. I mean, he made like a hall of heroes for all of his
for his companions,
comrades, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Ainz has a sense of comradeship that makes him very soft on his companions, but he doesn't ever want to talk about it or reveal it. In part because obviously, all of the NPCs that follow him that are hyper powerful would destroy him if they found out that he was a weak standard human who kind of just played a game. So I thought, for me at least, that the Graveyard arc really showed that he is open to making new connections. It's not just his friends that abandoned the game that he is loyal to. And when he was doing his final fight against the murderous lady, I can't remember her name, he reveals really how attached he is to his adventuring companions before she murdered them. And I thought that was super important. Clementine, her name was Clementine. And I thought that was super important, actually, because it really shows not only that he's an incredible manager from the way he handled Lizzie Barrera and her grandson, but also from the way he handled Clementine and the murder of his new adventuring companions. Wide amounts of stuff was revealed about him in a very emotional, interesting arc, in my opinion, early on. Which is really helpful because, unfortunately, I will say the pacing is very slow about some things, like revealing what's happening in the world. Because after that,
there's so many characters to deal with, right?
In a way, but also just like the idea of what's going on with Irons, what's going on with his guild, what's going on with that village. Sorry, what's the name of the girl in the village? Does anyone remember? The main girl?
Village head.
Village head girl.
She must have been the 81st person to care about.
Village head girl, whose name I cannot remember right now, but Nefaria is in love with her. She is growing at an unusual rate ever since Irons gave her a summoning tool.
Yeah, now she just
so she's becoming way powerful, and you can really see it from how she can no longer do basic tasks because she breaks things too easily, including kitchen knives. And all of the goblins she has under her command consider her the most dangerous thing in the village.
Yes, yeah.
Which she starts to prove more and more as the series goes.
And then the ogres as well are terrified of her.
Terrified of her. And you really start to get the impression that maybe they should be afraid of her as she continues.
Oh, she uses a level 1 item to summon like a level 6 army or something?
She summons a huge, huge goblin army, which is something that even Ainz didn't know about. So there's some background development stuff happening that's kind of terrifying in its own regard, because it tells you that Ainz is familiar with things and he's powerful in the stuff he's familiar with. But there's all of the stuff he's not familiar with, and it's coming. There's a dragon having conversations about how her ring allows you to break limits, and she gave it to a guy, and now it's on the hand.
Of Climb, right?
Climb has
But
it.
that's what I was going to bring up. Because he's obviously, he's like just a normal human, right? There's nothing special about him.
He's
You
a
make
below
that point
average
a lot,
human.
like
Even
a
amongst
lot.
humans, he's looked down upon.
But very obviously, he's going to be like a heroic character at some point.
I
That's what
feel like you need to be careful about very obviously, because a lot of what Overlord does is convince you that things are going to be okay, and they never are.
Subversion.
Oh, sure, he's probably going to die.
Yes,
I
yeah.
expect that of all the humans, but they're building up.
The princess's plan for him was if he breaks his arms and legs, she can take care of him while he can't escape her.
Yes, no, I remember.
Or as
She
he's
is
recovering from being
terrifying.
resurrected. Yeah.
Interestingly, Alberta says that she's the one interesting human, right? She seems to like her.
Indeed, because she's the least human.
Right.
The fact that her brother and that Duke guy were both like, oh god, this monster, is really just telling you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
And the scene where she deals with her maid. I'm sorry, I know that we said that this wasn't our favorite, but everything from the show is fucking memorable to me.
Yeah, maybe. She is an interesting character. I think Overlord has a lot of interesting characters in it.
It does, very much so. And interesting moments, interesting interactions. And it does it with such a gargantuan cost that I didn't think it was possible to make me care about this many people, but I do.
Were you upset by the CGI at all? That is the one sort of controversy.
So yes, obviously in season 2, I think it is, the CGI was bleh, and then season 3's was even worse.
It does seem that way. I always wondered if it was just supposed to suggest that these are like video game characters, kind of. That
No,
have been summoned,
it very clearly was just trash CGI because they did a camera change at one point, and the marching goblins kept marching in the same direction.
That's what I want to bring up, right? Those goblins in particular, because the first goblins that were summoned by Irons are like normally animated. They're real characters, and then the ones that are summoned by the item accidentally seem to be like CGI things. I suppose that's just
100% terrible CGI.
you really they really do look just like 2005 CGI video game characters, don't they?
But also the Empire's, sorry, the Kingdoms, not the Empire's. The Kingdoms army was also terrible CGI.
Yeah, I didn't notice that so much though. I suppose they were giant.
When they were getting stomped by the goats, the terrible, shitty goats.
Yes.
When they were getting stomped by the goats, they did an entire marching down a hillside scene, and then Ein's spell kills them. And it was comedic. It's supposed to be this moment of great horror as he kills 20,000 people. And instead, they left the physics on their bodies, so they rolled down the hill a little bit after they died. And I almost burst out laughing.
It is unfortunate. Have you seen Kadokawa's the studio that Kadokawa uses to make anime? They've only got one CGI
I've
department.
seen a tour inside it, yeah. I mean, a lot of shows use CGI, and some CGI is very well done. This is just an example of some seriously bad CGI. To the point where I actually think it bittered my experience of the anime.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'll get over it. I'm not there for the battles really most of the time.
I just think that if that's your last experience of Overlord, that's such a terrible lost experience of Overlord.
I think that's why they didn't just cut to fade to black on the army scenes. They went into traditional animation again. And sort of
to give us some chatting. Yeah.
But I generally have I'm not sure about Overlord in terms of quality because I feel that season 2 was great. Obviously, the CGI was worse there, but that's the best story arc
so far for you.
Season 1 feels a bit all that set up to end with a fight with Sheltier. Didn't really go anywhere. I'm actually surprised they got a season 2, but then season 2 was great, and season 3 was a bit of sort of half and half. The first half seemed a continuation of season 2,
Mm.
And then the rest
The
of it
first
was
half
just
is very reminiscent of the Lizardman arc because we're following a new adventuring party,
yeah.
and Ain's in that adventuring party, kind of.
But it also wraps itself up, right? I mean, they all die
It does.
or
By
are
halfway
tortured to
through,
death or
we're
something.
done. But also, far more importantly, it brings us to see how disgusting
Nazarick is.
Nazarick actually is.
You see the torture
Because we're
chambers, the
getting all
red
of
bug
these
guy.
heroic victories for Nazarick, but because we were following the humans, their victory is painful in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does shift your point of view for a
Perspectives.
while, and
Mm.
you start to think,
Just like the
well,
Lizardman arc.
Heinz didn't seem that bad in the beginning, but now he's definitely a bad character, and he's playing with the idea of heroism as well. He's not really that hero Momonga or whatever.
Mm.
Momon.
I mean, for me, one of the most chilling things was we're going to change your memory of your god to see if worshipping a different concept we invented will still give you power. I'm curious where it comes from.
Yes,
That's
it's
fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
they do make fun of that in Isekai Quartet as well, though, with the
Yes,
detention
yeah.
room. Oh, who's that bug guy? Uh, I can't remember, but he's one of the sort of sub characters, right?
Mm.
He makes bugs sort of crawl over you and go in your eyes and mouth, and
Mouth and everything, and
that's
eat you
how
from the
he
inside out.
tortures. Yes, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the detention chamber in Isekai Quartet. uh,
Ouch.
but yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
I like the show. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where. I mean, my opinion of it changes from moment to moment. Really, always really enjoy it when I'm watching it, so that's good. I'm never bored when I'm watching Overlord.
Mm.
The beyond the anime, though, I think the manga is not worth reading.
I will have to say I find the manga kind of pointless. Although
Yeah,
I feel like I'm also coming from that from having watched the anime.
yeah, but it's just there's more of the anime, right? It's just
Not only is there more of the anime, but it's also kind of drawn better mostly.
yeah.
And I'm not trying
The
to insult the
light
manga. The
novels, of
manga
course,
does a very competent job of telling the story. But the
but
anime
it's
does a
based
better
on
job.
the anime. It's
Yeah,
not based
it's
on the
based
light
on the
novel.
anime.
So
Yeah.
what's the point? You're not getting more out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's no value added.
Yeah, a light novel, of course, is worth reading. Although the
I
translation's
would say the
great.
light novel is 5 or 6 times better than the anime. It's one of the best light novels I've ever read.
Yes,
If ReZero didn't exist, it would be the best light novel I have ever read.
notoriously, the author has a particular style in Japanese, which makes it very difficult to read because he likes using old-fashioned Chinese characters for everything, even things that people don't write out in full anymore. So I think the kind of otaku who are really into that sort of thing have kind of latched on because it's kind of a quirky, cool idea.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a different experience.
Mm.
Anyway, I think that's going to wrap up Overlord. And we can just end the show with what we've been watching, what we've been reading. Yeah.
Yeah,
like a
we can
plan.
do that.
I want to mention a show it's not a new show, but it's newish. It's called The Vampire Dies in No Time.
Yes.
Heard of it?
It's an interesting concept because it starts out so generic and then it very quickly is not.
It's strange. It's nothing great. I mean, it's not going to change your world, right?
Yep.
But it's just like that sort of fun anime that I feel used to exist more, just as a little season interlude kind of thing, where it's about this vampire hunter and this vampire. Ronaldo, I think is his name, and the vampire is Drac. I'm not sure. And
Yeah.
the sort of setup is, oh, there's this vampire terrorizing the community. Let's call him the Great Vampire Hunter. And literally the moment the door is opened, of the vampire's mansion, Drac is like standing behind the door, gets hit by the door very gently, and then dies immediately. That's the basic tone of the story. Is that he is the weakest vampire you can imagine, and he dies regularly. But because he's a
Semi-instantly.
vampire, he sort of reforms slowly into his self, you know. And I think at one point he dies of embarrassment. So it's a pure comedy. In the first episode, Ronaldo destroys his mansion in a fire, and so they're living in the same apartment together. This vampire hunter who makes his living, you know, one by killing vampires, but two by a successful book line starring himself as the main character in a sort of fictionalized sense. So they kind of make fun of him as like this Twilight kind of character.
Oh yeah.
He's often confronted with fans who view him in that sort of like, you know, starstruck sort of light. And counter to that, as you know, fans of his work that are really fascinated by vampires because of it. So you get these women who try to cozy up to the vampire just to get bitten, right? So they can have their like little Twilight sparkle moment.
Oh no. Yeah. I know several people that would quite happily run towards a vampire.
Yes, yeah, I
Yeah.
have met someone like that as well.
It's a common theme.
Although I'm not sure they would be into the Twilight thing, but I would suggest it as just some sort of light-hearted watching for anyone who wants something to watch in the meantime.
Cool.
What do you have for us, Yash?
I'm watching Kimetsu no Yaiba because there's a new season up, and I skipped starting it at the beginning of the season, so I'm just binge
Demon
watching
Slayer.
Demon Slayer. Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer, the Entertainment District arc. I finished the manga a while ago, so I know what's going to happen to a certain extent. But watching it all animated is, of course, just fun.
Have they gotten past the train yet?
Yes, yeah, quite some time. Well, I mean, Entertainment District arc is after the train.
Okay, I'll jump back into it then because I didn't want to
I
watch
do
the
think
train.
the train was about 4 episodes, maybe even more.
Really? Okay, maybe I'll just like plow through them because I watched the movie that the train.
They do the train arc a little bit less confusingly in the series, I will say. I
I'm
did
sure
get a
it's
bit
good.
confused reading the train arc. Sorry, not reading the train. Watching the train arc
Yeah,
in the movie.
I didn't really like the movie.
It was very rushed. I think they handled it a lot better in the series, in my opinion.
Dylan, do you know what Demon Slayer is?
I've watched Demon Slayer.
Okay.
Like the anime, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you know it's the most popular anime in Japan.
I didn't know it was. I knew it was like super popular outside of my sort of under my radar, and then I watched it and I kind of understood that it was popular, but I didn't realize it was the most popular in Japan.
It's sort of like Simpsons popular.
Really?
Even people who don't watch anime watch it for some reason.
So an interesting stat that I found funny is that
There's only one season of it right now, right?
No,
two.
It's two. Oh, okay. Sorry, yes, yeah.
Sorry, about the manga, there's an interesting fact. Sales of Kimetsu no Yaiba exceeded the sales of manga the year before.
Jeez.
Just Kimetsu no Yaiba.
No, it's insanely popular.
Insanely popular.
Can I ask a question that I might be afraid to ask, which is why in particular? Like I enjoyed watching. I think I've only watched the first season. I enjoyed watching it. I thought, you know, it's a bit like archetypical in terms of story, but it's still entertaining. What do you think the elements are that draw such a wide audience?
I think it's like Naruto, but well produced.
So I was going to say, it's all thriller, no filler.
Okay, fair.
It progresses through the storylines at a good pace. It never feels like a villain outstays their welcome for any period of time. The training arcs usually come with character development, so it doesn't feel like training arcs are just a waste of space. Every fight against a demon that we follow from Tanjiro's perspective usually includes the demon's backstory and a level of like forgiveness for that demon to a
Moments
certain
before they
extent.
hit him. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we tend towards getting a good emotional story arc from individual fights. So no individual fight feels like it outstays its welcome. And if there's one thing about shonen that I think is very common, is everything just feels like it outstays its welcome just a little bit, and then we move
This
on to the
is
next thing.
I feel like that's a very good observation from both of you, is that it's like it's not this next time kind of cliffhanger vibe. They get on with telling the story.
Yeah,
Precisely.
it's
Which
not
is
a. I mean, it is a shonen, but it's not made in that shonen way of like
Yeah.
weekly
Just
episodes.
filler. Oh, you're getting bored. We'll switch arcs. Filler.
I think maybe that's over. The time of that sort of thing is just over now. I think once One Piece is done, that's just not going to be a thing anymore.
But Chris, Boruto is going strong.
Sorry, I forgot that existed.
I mean, even to some extent, they do that even to some extent with My Hero Academia, right? Like
Absolutely,
there are a lot of
100%.
fillers, and there's a lot of tangential sort of diversions that quite frankly
Outstay
aren't.
their welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not
The
appreciated.
divergence always outstay their welcome.
At a
Because yeah.
yeah, that exam arc in My Hero, it really started to drag for a while.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
like every side bit of that exam arc, every little sub story just went on for too long.
Yeah.
Where Kimetsu no Yaiba, usually we defeat 4 villains in 3 episodes or something like that.
Yeah.
And they are all fleshed out. And
And
there's usually an emotional payoff. I think also because it gives us our action payoff, our anger payoff, our happiness payoff, and our it pays off different emotions a lot.
yeah, and that moment, like the moment of rest that they take, so you do the action, demon killing, the rest of it. There's often like that calmness in terms of narrative pace. They find somewhere to hold up and they rest, and it's within those moments that there's more world building exposition. So they use those rests not just as like slice of life, weird tangential stories, but they actually go into a faction or a group of people or a backstory for not a backstory in the typical sense, but like
They inform us and fill out the world.
100%.
So it's not filler.
And all of the things they're informing us of are actually relevant. It's not like some random character that they're going into. They're actually, that's what I would say. And I hope they keep up that formula, because it would be.
Sadly, there's only about 3.5, maybe 4 seasons worth of Demon Slayer content.
Yeah, but I mean, I also
That's fine,
would
though.
like
I mean,
the
it's
world
all-
to
all
kind
as
of
good
get
as
used to that.
the first season.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
It's all as good as the first season. In fact, I feel like it gets better as the story goes.
awesome. Yeah,
Because we develop the 2 side characters. We develop Pig Boy and Lightning Boy.
yeah.
Yeah. The Bakugo equivalent, actually. Same voice actor, I think.
He's a Bakugo equivalent, but he's not as frustrating.
I don't think it is the same voice actor, because I was convinced of it at the time, and I checked, and
Is it not?
I believe that it's not, and I thought to myself, how can 2 people have
Sounds
this
exactly
the same voice range?
That does happen though with voice actors.
Yeah.
Because often they're imitating another voice actor because they're trying to play the same sort of character.
Look, I might be mistaken, but when I looked it up, I was like, no, this cannot be.
I mean, I was convinced Ekidana's voice actor was the same as Harui's voice actor for a while for some reason.
Yes, yeah.
Echidna, yeah.
I actually thought it was he's the main character in My Hero. The name's escaping me now. Midoraki.
Midoriya.
Midoriya. Yeah. I thought his voice was Midoriya's, and then the other guy was Bakugo's, and I was like, have they just taken like a template and then just like gone stamp, and then it ended up being two separate things exactly.
I think they did take a template and then they priced the template and it turned out to be too much. So
you are our William Shatner lookalike.
They've got Midoriya and Bakugo at home. Midoriya and Bakugo.
Yeah. Oh my word, that's great. No, we've got that at home. It's not the same. Actually, it really is. Oh no.
The no-name brand, Midoriya.
Oh my word.
Anyways, Chris, if you don't want to have to edit a 2.5-hour podcast, I suggest you tell Craig to go.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well,
Before we do that,
Sorry, yes.
so I've had quite a busy work week, so I've just been relaxing with animal videos. In particular, otters and hedgehogs tend to be the theme of the day, and there are a lot of Japanese content creators that have exotic pets,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's a whole
Rats
rabbit
in
hole that you can go down with otters doing really cute things, sitting at the table like gentlemen eating fish that the owner sort of puts down until they go ballistic and then just start grappling over it. I recommend it if you want to like relax, ease off some of the tension. Go down that rabbit hole. It's worth it.
Speaking
Indeed.
about
Sounds
relaxing,
wonderful.
I'd just like to thank Dylan and Yash for being here, and
Mm,
thank you for listening to That Japanese Thing, episode 5. Bye, everyone.
awesome.
Goodbye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Cheers. Bye.